Hello, everyone. I think all of the microphones should be working. Welcome to a new episode of the History of Yesterday podcast. Today, we are going to be doing a topic quite close to our hearts. We're going to be talking about Vlad the Impaler, who is probably one of the most famous people to come from our home country, Romania. Probably most well known from the Bram Stoker novel, the Dracula.
Prince of Dracula.
Yeah, Prince of Dracula. We're going to be looking at his history, some of the misconceptions behind his life, and what he did throughout his short reign of Wallachia, and some of the facts behind the story that spawned Bram Stoker's novel.
Before anything, you might want to change the title on the Twitch stream.
I'm doing that now.
And welcome everyone who just came on. Do you tell us if the microphones are too loud or not loud enough?
Yeah, as usual.
But just making sure.
If you'd like to start off with, I don't know, I think we said that we're going to start off with the history. So if you'd like to have like a little introduction.
Hello to you all.
Start off.
Right, so in order to understand the story, what we want to go is focus a bit on the misconception of Dracula seen by the Western world and the way it is portrayed by the Westerners, and us showing the actual, I'm not going to say, well, it is truth and misconceptions that are seen from Eastern Europeans and from people that actually lived in Transylvania and saw how it actually is. So in order to understand, we're going to go back to Vlad the Impaler's father, which was Vlad II at the time. Vlad II had big problems with the Ottoman Empire, which was the biggest rival of Wallachia at the time. Romania wasn't still formed yet. It was Wallachia, Brasov, and Moldova. And Wallachia was controlled by Vlad II, and he would also be controlled by Vlad the Impaler, which is also known as Vlad III. I'm going to try to refer to them as which Vlad we're talking about so we don't get confused. Now, Vlad II had two sons, Vlad the Impaler, known as Dracula, and Radu. During his reign, the Ottomans were very powerful. They were known as one of the most powerful nations on earth at the time, a pre-modern medieval era, because of their wealth and their huge military numbers. They could pretty much diminish any nation they wanted, because most of the nations at the time, they weren't really allied, not enemies. They were more like neutral. No one was really trusting anyone at the time. It was just in the Crusades where the nations would come together to fight the political reign, because religion was kind of the politics at the time. So at some time, the Ottoman Empire came to Wallachia and demanded that they would give their land, they would seize everything. And I think it was Pashaman at the time that said to Vlad II, we're going to try and do something else. We're going to ask for tribute. So we're going to demand tribute, so we will leave your country alone. But in order to do that, we are also going to take both of your sons as prisoners. Due to as I mentioned, the big numbers and the financial muscle that the Ottoman Empire had at the time, Wallachia wouldn't have standed a chance. Plus, they didn't really have any allies at the time. So Vlad II didn't have much of a choice, because what he cared about is not that he didn't care about his sons, but he cared more about the country and the nation. That's what he fought for. So he gave his sons away, Vlad II, Dracula, and Radu, his brother. As time passed, they went over there and they were kept as prisoners from small children. I think they were taken at Vlad the Impaler was pretty much 7 at the time, and I think Radu was only 3 years younger than him, if I remember correctly. So they were taken as prisoners, and they were obviously thought in the way of the Islam at the time. They weren't demanded to convert to Islam, but they saw in that time, all the way that the Muslims would live, especially the Ottoman Empire, the way that they would fight. They were even actually trained by Janissaries, which were
Yeah, I was
the
gonna add an aside here. The tributes, including the princes taken from Vlad, they were turned into what like the Ottoman special troops, which were the Janissaries. These were these were the people who the Ottoman Empire took as tributaries from other countries, and they were basically turned into sole soldiers. Everything to do with their lives was to do with fighting, and they were like the special troop of the empire. And any time especially the Pasha went on campaign, he would take a group of Janissaries with him because he knew that these were the elite troops of the empire and they could outmatch any other troop, especially against the weaker nations of Eastern Europe at the time.
We have a comment on Facebook from Peter saying, "So what's this all about then?" Not exactly sure what you're referring to, so if you can explain yourself a bit there, we'll surely answer the questions. So where was I left? The important bit that I want to mention from this part of the story is that he had a chance to see exactly all the military strategies that the Ottoman Empire used against their enemies. And a big part, and very imperative to our story today, is the terror that the Ottoman Empire were putting on their enemies by killing without mercy and in gruesome ways their enemies, just to show that they are the ones who rule. And they didn't do this only with the enemies, but with the people in the country, with criminals, to sort of portray an example to what will happen if you were to be a criminal, or if you were to be someone who didn't want the best, wasn't in the best interest for the Ottoman Empire. So Vlad was. We have another comment on Facebook. Vlad was Vlad the Impaler was at the time the king of Wallachia, which is modern day Transylvania in Romania at the time.
No. Transylvania is separate. Wallachia is like
right. Yeah.
The bottom section of Romania. I'll bring a picture up while you talk about it.
So Vlad, who we're talking about, we're referring to Dracula, and I presume everyone has heard the story of Dracula, the vampire, at least assumed as vampire. And what we're doing the stream on today is we want to kind of cut out the misconception of why Dracula is seen as a vampire, but he isn't really. He's never been, and there's no such thing as vampires in Transylvania, neither in Romania, even though the Western world is kind of trying to keep on this legend alive, saying that there is. But you should go and visit yourselves that region of Romania to clarify it.
We are not sponsored by the Romanian government to give our recommendations to visit Romania, but I'm gonna bring up a picture right now.
This should help, yeah.
Yeah, wait. Our cameras are freezing for some reason as well. But yeah, this is if you look on stream, you can see the different 3 regions. Four regions. I need to fix the cameras because they're I don't know what's happening to them.
Take your time and fix them.
Yeah, there we are. I'm gonna switch back now. Continue what you were saying.
So just as we had the map over there, you can see that at the bottom, the water that you would see that was called was that the Black Sea? Because it's not the entire map, and I couldn't tell. That was the Black Sea, right?
Which bay are you referring to?
Was it the Black Sea or was it the Dunăre?
On which part of the map? What do you mean? On the right is the Black. On the right is the Black Sea.
Right, right. And through the Black Sea, because this is important for later on. Through the Black Sea, there was a river called Dunăre, if you can see it.
Right, I keep switching between them. I'll leave it up while you explain like the general geography.
Over there, right at the northeast side where Brăila is, and you see there's a small river going there. It's called Dunăre, and that's what the Turks, the Ottoman Empire used later on to actually flood Wallachia.
It's called the Danube in English for.
Okay, yeah. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah,
my bad.
I'll bring the cameras back. If you want to continue, I was also gonna mention something about, because you said like Islamic society is like quite pure and it likes to punish hard. An example is.
Just a second, because we have.
Oh right, okay.
Facebook. Thank you, Thank you for that, clarifying that. And is this also true that he did not use to suck blood? No, he
No,
didn't
no,
use
no,
to
no,
suck
no.
blood. Like this is the misconception that we want to remove from the Western culture. He wasn't a vampire, and if you're gonna listen to the whole story, how we are gonna explain it, you're gonna find out yourself through logic that this was just a legend built up by the Western world, as well as some if you can say legends created by Romanians at the time. You
For
do continue with
tourism, of
what you were
course.
saying. The
Yeah.
folklore, yeah.
I was gonna say that a quite like big hallmark of Islamic society at the time, and is seen in some countries today, is cutting off someone's hand if they've been caught stealing. So that is quite like a harsh example of
Gruesome, gruesome way
gruesome and harsh
to.
example on how such a things were being dealt with at the time. I think we were talking about the Janissary training that the two young
Yeah, but
princes
I
went
just
through.
want to continue a bit on the gruesome stuff and
Okay.
that the
Yeah,
Ottoman
yeah,
Empire
okay.
did. It was to exemplify that was the main reason, is to put fear into people so that people wouldn't dare to either fight back. And it wasn't just with like I said, criminals within the Ottoman Empire or bad people within the Ottoman Empire, but it was also with the enemies and neutral countries beside the Ottoman Empire, because they never wanted to see. The Ottoman Empire always wanted to see themselves higher than any other nation. And like I said, they had the financial muscle to show off, and they had the military numbers. But that doesn't necessarily mean because they had the military numbers that they did actually have the military power to defeat the other nations. And you'll find out later why I said that. And as I was continuing, Vlad was actually trained by Janissaries, and that's why he became such a good fighter, and that's why he actually was a good strategist as well. In later time, we're going to jump a bit here and saying that when, at some point in time, Vlad the Impaler, managed to escape from the Turks, and he returned back to Wallachia.
With Vlad the
By
Third.
that-
Vlad the Second was his dad.
Vlad the Third.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Did I say second? My
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
So Vlad III actually Vlad the Impaler came back to Wallachia. And when he came back, he saw the country was not the way that his father left it. Because after his father, the next ruler was Mircea the Old, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. We're gonna have to. Do you want me to check the lineage?
Check. But I'm pretty sure it was Mircea the Old after his father, and many others as well. But Mircea the Old, it was again one important one because he did have a lot of fights. He did have a big contribution towards the expansion of Wallachia.
No, it was Vladislav II who came after Vlad
Okay.
II, apparently.
Okay, my bad then. Thank you for confirming that.
Yeah. So, if you want to continue about what happened after the Vladislav took over.
Once he came there, he actually gathered a lot of people, a lot of boyars. Now, boyars are the best way to define a boyar is a wealthy and powerful man, and that's what the kingsmanship, or what do you want to call it? What's better to call this?
It's probably like the best equivalent of like a knight. They're like landowners who are expected to bring troops to a military campaign.
But the tradition itself wasn't the same in the eastern region, at least. In the western, it was more based on knights, but they didn't really see themselves as knights. They just seemed themselves as powerful and wealthy people.
Yeah.
Once he gathered enough boyars, he actually took over to whoever had reign at that time by having another boyar, killing them. And funny story, what he did with the boyar that killed him, even though Vlad the Impaler didn't order the boyar to kill him, to kill the actual king at the time, he said he ordered his men to kill the boyar with the same spear he killed the king at the time. Because he saw this as a crime. And this is where we kind of start to see where he tries to put in practice the things he had learned from the Ottoman Empire, but for the good, not for necessarily the bad. Not saying that the Ottoman Empire used it for the bad, but in his eyes, he saw it that way. Like I said, once he came back to Wallachia, he saw that the country was an utter mess. It wasn't the same way his father left it, because at that time there was an implied law.
Wait, Just a second. Apparently, your microphone is clipping a little bit. I
Oh,
don't
is it?
know. That might be a problem. That might be either a connection problem or a problem with you. Can anyone else confirm that about the microphone quality? The gain. Oh, wait. So you're saying that Andrei's too loud? Okay, I can reduce
Okay.
it a little bit.
I'll try and
Um,
stay a bit more behind because probably
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
getting too close, and that's why. I'll
Okay,
try. Okay.
go on.
Thank you for
Yeah,
letting us
thank you
know.
for pointing that out.
Um,
Continue
so
with.
he found the country in a bad shape because 60% of the time, if someone actually transported goods of whatever kind, it was very likely that they would be stolen. It was very likely that the transporters would be killed. It was very likely that bad things would happen to you if you were pretty much a rich man. So there was no control over the crime in Romania, which was a big problem, not just in Wallachia at the time or in the Romanian region, but also in medieval times in general. But not necessarily in the Ottoman Empire, like we have spoken before. So once Vlad the Impaler came to his throne, he told all the boyars that he wanted to remove crime. That from that day he wanted to take everyone out, free everyone from prison. But the second day, if anyone were to wrong do something, if someone were to commit a crime such as murder, theft, or whatever, no matter how big or small the crime may be, they would pay with their heads. They would be killed. Many of the boyars didn't like this, and the reason why is because indirectly, a lot of their business that was going on, a lot of their financial gain was coming from these crimes, was facilitated by these crimes. So obviously, it wasn't the right, even though it was the right thing, they would lose a lot of money because of this. So they didn't have really much of a choice but to listen to the king. But at the same time, they wanted to do something. They thought that the king, oh, he's just at the beginning of his reign, he's a bit harsh, but then he will change. But they saw that he didn't change because he came there to raise Wallachia for what it was, and he wanted just to own a free country. He didn't want to expand. He didn't want to take back or do anything of sorts. He just wanted to free his country from the Ottoman Empire, because at the time, just like I mentioned before, the Wallachia was paying tribute for over 20 years by that time. And the problem is that the tribute was going the higher and higher by year. So they were going to reach a point where the country would be pretty much bankrupt from the tribute that the Ottoman Empire was asking. And
I
it wasn't just,
think
it wasn't, sorry.
about the tribute. I think that was obviously done by design because the Ottomans saw the principalities Romania, Moldova as something to control, and they didn't want to seem as warmongers by attacking Romania and then taking it over, because
Yeah.
the West would obviously then start a crusade as they have done many times before to try to push them back. So by peacefully puppeting the country and then raising the tax that the country had to pay repeatedly, it meant that it would get to a point where the country couldn't pay the tax, and then they would have an excuse. They could be like, "Oh, the country cannot pay the tax anymore to us, so our only option is to just go in and take it over and then rule the country for ourselves." Yep, go on.
I just have a comment on Facebook asking where the present location of Transylvania is. It's in Romania.
I can bring up the map again. I still have it up.
No. He's asking
When?
present time location.
Yeah, no, but the region is the same. It's I can bring them. I can bring
Yeah, but
a.
you don't. The problem is you don't have the whole of Romania. That's why it looks.
Okay, wait.
Doesn't look exactly the
I'll
same.
bring a Romania
Well.
region map up while you if you want to keep going.
Right. So where was I? Right, with the tribute. What I wanted to actually also mention is that it wasn't just Wallachia nor the Romanian region, because it was also Moldova that was paying tribute at the time. It was very many nations and countries that were paying tribute. That's a main factor of why the Ottoman Empire became so wealthy.
There we are. I've put it up. So Transylvania is the
Pretty much the center
is
of
the
Romania.
central place. Yeah, it's the region that used to be ruled by Hungary, then the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And then you can see the other regions around. Oltenia and Muntenia are the regions that make up Wallachia.
Wallachia, yeah.
And then you have Moldavia and South Bukovina, which the whole of Bukovina and Moldavia made up the old Moldavian Principality. We have a comment from YouTuber Karatas Kemal. European countries. I'll bring back the cameras. European countries were afraid of the Ottoman Empire. Yeah. A lot of, especially Hungary. Even though Hungary was a very strong country back in the 1440s, they were still. Although they had a very powerful force. Even they were afraid of the Ottoman Empire and tried to start crusades. And Vlad himself, I'm pretty sure, tried to start kind of like kinder a crusade by asking the Pope for some help. I think,
but he never received any help from anyone.
Yeah, he never received any help because a lot of European countries saw it as a distant threat, something that they would just take care in the future, and didn't see the need to spend their money on that right now.
One interesting thing about that is that at some point in time, I think it was in the late reign of Vlad the Impaler, Vlad II, he was asked by the Ottoman Empire to actually, they said that we will leave you alone as long as you give passage to our troops towards Hungary.
Yeah.
But obviously he never did that, because he was clever enough to know that if they were able to take over Hungary, Romania would be Wallachia would be sandwiched.
Yeah.
And would be taken over as easy as that.
Karatas also said so. So Vlad tried to save his country and the whole of the continent, maybe. Yeah, a lot of people do say that the resistance shown by Wallachia and Moldavia later with Michael the Great actually put a big hamper in the Ottoman expansion in Europe. And obviously at the siege of Vienna, that was the turning point of the whole Ottoman expansion within Europe. But we talking about this side of history where some smaller events hampered them, means that maybe if Romania didn't, or Wallachia and Moldavia didn't give as much of a pushback when the Ottomans invaded, maybe the Ottomans could have snowballed a lot more than they did in our current timeline. Andrei, if you want to continue.
Just like mentioned before, it was all about the numbers. It was all about the numbers and trying to put fear onto not only the enemies but everyone around them. Even though until later on they never proved that their numbers actually worked. And once they go to war with Wallachia, they would actually, not justify that numbers aren't everything. It's all about the power as well.
Also, Oscar said that they share a mustache. If you want to bring up a pic, I'm not sure who you're referring to. If you can tell me who you're referring to. Well, I think we were on Boyars and Vlad III coming back to Romania. We went on a bit of a tangent about Ottoman influence and everything else. If you want to go on to that.
Right, so as I was mentioning, it was a few boyars that sided with Vlad the Impaler, and a few boyars that didn't like his new ruling. So what the old boyars tried to do is actually try to take because each boyar, or each knight, better said, had its own troops. So Vlad didn't really have full control of the Wallachian army, because each should I say, knighthood made the whole of the Wallachian army. So some of them, half of the army was still controlled by some boyars that didn't accept Vlad's rulings, which what they tried to do is start a small revolution within Wallachia, but actually failed because Vlad foresaw this and knew that a lot of the boyars weren't gonna go his way for a long time. So at that point in time, what he has created, from where Vlad the Impaler, his nickname, comes from. What he would do is he would put around 5 meter big post pale,
Stakes.
which was stakes. Yeah, better word. And what he would do is just put whoever he wanted to kill on stakes, and they would slowly go down, and the stake would slowly go through them, and they would die. Some of them died instantly. Some of them actually took days to die. We have some comments here on Facebook.
Yeah.
Chippy says Michael the Great in Moldavia. Really?
Yeah. I realized I was thinking of Stefan the Great in Moldavia, and then Michael the Brave is the Wallachian leader. Yeah. Sorry, that's my mistake on that.
And we have another comment for Avinash. is the house in the main square of Sigishwara where his father lived still in good condition? I think it's still in good condition. I think, yeah, because most of these buildings in Romania they do get
Renovated.
renovated and they get taken care of by
Yeah.
I think most of them are controlled by the UNESCO organization, the one that takes care of all these historical buildings and makes sure that they're not damaged or anything, or in case they are damaged, they are reinforced.
We have
So
a comment off YouTube as well. If
yeah, go
like
on.
different countries like Romania, Rhodes Islands. And I'm pretty sure that's the Rhode Islands in English. And Germany were trying anything they could do. A lot of German princes did actually offer help in some of these incursions, but obviously one prince in the what was then the Holy Roman Empire couldn't really do much against the hundreds of thousands of the Ottoman troops that were coming in. There was during the invasion of Wallachia when Vlad was in power. I'm pretty sure there was a German country who offered mercenaries, or was there an Italian princedom? I don't know. Andrei might know a bit more about that when we get into it.
Also, can you show the house where Vlad II lived in Sigishwara?
Yeah.
We have a comment here on Facebook.
I'll try to find it.
Like Calin mentioned before, we are not sponsored
Yeah.
by any travel agencies, but it is a beautiful place to visit, not just because of its history or legends, but the beauty in itself.
I mean, if the Romanian agency for travel is watching, we would more than happily
Accept the sponsorship.
accept the partnership to advertise Romania. I'm going to. I'm pretty sure this is the house. I'm going to resize it and bring it up now. From what it looks like, it's still in great condition. And oh wait, what have I done?
What have you done?
Okay. Let me redo that. I may or may not have resized it a bit too small, and now it's disappeared off my screen. I'll do it now. So yeah, in regions, especially in the region of Transylvania, the buildings are usually kept in quite good shape because the region is quite rich. There we are. That is the house that we were talking about. The picture is dated in. I will tell you right now. It's from 2008, so it's decently recent, but I wouldn't expect for it to have gotten into much more disrepair since then.
It's definitely taken care of. Like most of the historical buildings in Romania, they're taken care of, especially in that region. Just give me a second, because it seems that I'm having difficulties with the stream on Facebook, and I need to see it on my phone so I can read the comments. We need to get that box fixed up as well.
Yeah,
so we can see all the comments. There we go. Yeah, it works now. Back on it. Right. So I hope you're happy to see that. Going back to the story. At some point when the Boyars were actually trying to create a small revolution. I already went past that. My bad. We are at the stakes now.
Yeah.
So from that day onwards, what Vlad the Impaler said is that every crime will be paid with a stake. And it was pretty much the most gruesome way of killing someone. And why he did this is because the stakes would stay there. No one would remove them. So every time you would pass a scene, you would see dead people, dead corpses, which would decay and sit there for days on days. And it was pretty much disgusting. But this is what he also done with all his enemies that were confronting him, especially the Ottoman Empire. After a battle ended, they would just end the battle, wherever the battle had taken place, they would just be impaled to show whoever else dared to come in his way what would happen.
When we move on to the topic of the Ottoman invasion of Wallachia, there's actually a quite significant part where he uses this to scare off the Ottoman army. If you can remind me when we talk about that.
So going on forward with his reign, he saw that many of the boyars weren't happy with his reign. He'd taken care of most of them, but the ones that did actually manage to escape Wallachia went to a nephew of Mihai the Great, I think it was. No, Mircea the Old. They went to a nephew, which was the Mircea the Old's nephew, and he was actually looking to take the throne from Vlad the Impaler. So with the power of I think it was 4 or 5 boyars at the time, with their power, their wealth, and their military assets, they thought that they might have the power to take over. But once again, Vlad foresaw this, and he was prepared to ambush them, and he pretty much decimated all of the units. And what he did is with Mircea the Old's nephew, they gave him. He had mercy just to show that he had mercy because he knew he was a nephew of a great leader that made a huge expansion for Wallachia. He gave him a shovel and he said, "Dig your own grave, and then we'll bury you alive." And the rest were impaled. Moving on forwards. At some point, I think it was I'm not sure the year. I don't know the exact years for medieval history because I don't know it that well. The tributes from the Ottoman Empire became so big that he kind of had enough. He was fed up, and none of the boyars were with him because the boyars saw it as a suicide mission. They knew the numbers that the Ottoman Empire had, but just like I mentioned before, numbers they don't mean anything when you don't really have good soldiers or soldiers that are experienced in warfare. So once the messengers or whatever you want to call them from the Ottoman Empire came to take the monthly tributes, they were killed. The next month, the same thing. The third month, they had another messenger that came, and they sent them back with the heads in their hands. So I think it was Muhammad II at the time that was ruling the Ottoman Empire, and he was really upset with this.
The Mehmed II.
Muhammad II.
Yeah.
And an important bit to mention right here is that Radu, Vlad II, Vlad the Impaler's brother, well, Dracula, what you want to call it, was still captive-ish by the Ottoman Empire. Like I mentioned before, he wasn't really turned towards Islam, but the only way that he could survive and not be killed is by trying to actually help, which means betray his brother.
To give a date for all of this, the Vlad broke tribute here. It says in 1461, it was in the early 1460s. I think he started. Some records say 1461, but there was a letter about it in that he sent to a Hungarian lord in 1462. So it was around that period.
Yeah. So obviously Muhammad was a Muhammad, yeah.
Mehmed II.
And to get them right, it's easy to confuse them. He was really angry, but he knew that Vlad wasn't stupid enough to actually go to war with him because Vlad knew how powerful the Ottoman Empire was from his own perspective, being there for so many years. So what he did is he sent another messenger, which was actually the person, I don't know his exact name, was the person who took care of Vlad when he was captive as a child in the Ottoman Empire, to try to make him and persuade him that, look, this is what's going to happen, and you don't want the Ottoman Empire to come and attack you. So what he did at the time, he tried to explain to the guy that we want to live in a free country. And that's the moment when they proposed to him that, we'll leave you alone, just give us passage to our troops so we can attack Hungary, and it's done and dealt. And then obviously he said that I'm not going to do that because I know you're going to take Hungary and then you're going to come for us. And the messenger said that Mahmud II promises that he won't attack Romania, but Vlad knew that just because Muhammad II promised that he wouldn't attack Romania, that doesn't mean that whoever came next to rule the Ottoman Empire wouldn't attack Wallachia. Sorry to keep on referring as Romania to make the difference. So that was
yeah.
go on.
I was gonna say next, obviously, came the invasion. I'm guess you're gonna be moving on to that, right?
Yeah, but there's just one more thing
Okay.
before the invasion. So that was one of the first messengers that he didn't kill, so he sent back because he knew him for a long time. The second time they tried to persuade Vlad to pay tribute and not go to war with the Ottoman Empire was when they actually sent his brother to try to get the boyars to turn onto Vlad once again. Because most of them were afraid of the Ottoman Empire. Most of them did turn on him again, and they tried to actually kill him one night when he was praying, but one of the boyars, which was the closest to Vlad at the time, told what the boyars were planning, and that's how he knew about it in time. And once again, they impaled most of them. So that's when Vlad actually declared that they would go to war with the Ottoman Empire, and that's the time when the Ottoman Empire actually came with their army to take tribute. And they thought once again that they actually, enslaved the whole Wallachian army, but they were ambushed once again because the main part of the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman military at the time, was that they would set up heavy infantry in front, and then they would just have loads of archers in the back. They weren't really good with cavalry at the time, whereas Wallachia had really good knights. And all they would do is just go around them and outflank them as quick as possible.
I've got a quote about the initial incursion into Romania. So, the when the Ottomans came to take the tribute, they Mehmed, who was a who was the obviously the leader of the Ottoman Empire, entered into Romania, and he stumbled upon what he called the first of the impaled. And a historian who specializes on Ottoman history described the events as such. So he says, the Sultan's army entered into the area of the impalements, which was 17 stades long and 7 stades wide. There were large stakes there on which, as it was said, about 20,000 men, women, and children had been spitted, quite a sight for the Turks and the Sultan himself. The Sultan was seized with amazement and said that it was not possible to deprive of his country a man who had done such great deeds, who had such a diabolical understanding of how to govern his realm and his people. And he said that a man who had done such a thing was worth much. The rest of the Turks were dumbfounded when they saw a multitude of men on the stakes. There were infants too affixed to their mothers on the stakes, with birds making nests in their entrails. So yeah, that's obviously something that contributed to his reputation of the Impaler quite a lot. It did this shock tactic.
If we talk about where Dracula comes, at least his sort of nickname, is because his father Vlad II was named Drac, which in old Romania means dragon, and he was given this sort of nickname because he was in the order of the Hungarian Order of Dragons, I think it was named.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a knighthood that was nicknamed Dragon, so that's where he came from. And when his son was born, Vlad III, sorry, Vlad the Impaler, they gave his name Dracula. And in modern Romanian language, Drac means demon.
Yeah.
He was nicknamed Demon because, as I said, he had very gruesome ways, and he would just kill anyone that didn't follow his rules. And what I mean by rules is I mean by laws. Everyone that, didn't commit a crime or just respected every order that he demanded, he wouldn't kill. And a lot of people saw him as being representing a demon. This is where the misconception of him being sort of a vampire came from. Not necessarily, it wasn't a vampire at the time, he was more of a demon, but then many misconceptions from the Western world, especially from Bram Stoker's book Prince of Dracula, associated him with vampires. This is where I wanted to go on to next, talking about how the Romanian culture and how the Romanian folklore, as well as traditions that it brings, kind of built up this legend. For example, foreigners, when they go to Romania, especially in Transylvania, they would see in old houses or in the countryside, even in towns, garlic hanging everywhere, and this is not to protect us from vampires or anything. This is used just because we use a lot of garlic in our dishes, and it was just from what I understand from my great grandmother, they would do this so that the garlic would dry up, and it's more tasty when it's dry rather than when it's green. Give you some some expertise on agriculture over there.
I mean, do you want me to talk about the fact about Bram Stoker now? Because
Yeah, you can say a bit about Bram
obviously
Stoker as well.
Bram Stoker was probably the person who brought this Dracula legend to fame, and I've read the book written by a American and Romanian historian about the history of Dracula, and one of the first things that they mention is that Bram Stoker didn't actually know anything about Romanian history. He knew some bits. He knew about the Romanian folklore, and obviously he has heard stories of this mythical ruler known as Vlad the Impaler, but he didn't know enough to for us to completely say that the legend of Dracula is actually based on Vlad the Impaler.
Can I just pause you there for a second because
yeah.
we have a few comments on Facebook. Thanks for the info, sir. Can you have a session on Indian history someday as well? We don't know that much about Indian history, so probably we're not going to. We have to study it a bit more, but yeah, in general, I do not know that much about Indian history to actually feel like I could talk for an hour or more, and I don't think either Calin knows that much either.
I know a few bits
A few
about
stories.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not I wouldn't we could probably compile something. We'll think about it. We have some comments on Twitch as well. Oscar said a history of yesterday cooking channel. If you'd like to share your grandmother's cooking recipes. I apparently studied British India for A levels. We could maybe get Oscar on to talk about India if we want to talk about that topic in the future. So it's definitely something that we're thinking about, knowing that Oscar does have that expertise. We will keep you guys updated on our Facebook, obviously, as we always do. In terms of continuing the topic about Bram Stoker, in the book Dracula, he combined the characteristics of Romanian folklore as well as combining some characteristics of Hungarian folklore and basing some of the characteristics of Dracula of Attila the Hun, mainly taken away from Attila's brutality in the way he wrote the character. In some people draw a lot of similarities between the character that Bram Stoker portrayed in his book and Vlad the Impaler, and it's obviously in pop culture is most often attributed to being based off Vlad the Impaler, but we because obviously we can't interview Bram Stoker right now. No historian is really sure that Bram Stoker did in the end base his book of Vlad. It's a mystery. It's either a combination of Vlad and folklore, or just a combination of leaders from that period, and combining all of their characteristics into one character that obviously scared Britain for a few centuries and has created a quite deep sense of pop culture around it.
I think it's just, you hear so many legends from a certain country or certain region of the world, and then you don't necessarily go to visit yourself to actually, because once you visit the place and you do see that there's not steaks everywhere, there's not frosties everywhere, or people just walking around with garlic around their neck, stuff like that, you get a different idea, because those misconceptions are mainly built, especially with the internet today. The internet is the biggest problem, because someone says something like a legend from I don't know what year, and everyone sort of starts to believe it because it's just a legend. At the end of the day, you choose to believe it. It's not necessarily true because it can't be justified. It's too old to be justified.
I mean, Bram Stoker did visit Romania, but to obviously collect all of the information he needed to create this character. But he obviously sensationalized it. I hope I said that right.
Just for Yeah, just to
Yeah.
attract people.
To make the book more exciting, and it obviously worked because we are speaking about 150 plus years later.
I think it's just one of those characters, it's just like Santa Claus. Everyone knows about Santa
Yeah.
Claus. I don't think there's a person who doesn't know about Dracula.
Dramaticized. There we are. Thank you, Oscar. It's obviously something that's been quite good for Romania because we've gotten a lot of tourism based off of this through Dracula's castle and just generally.
You say as if you earned anything. From
Listen,
it.
the Romanian state benefits.
As if you're gonna earn anything from this podcast, saying that go visit Romania. It's a beautiful country. Or go visit Transylvania.
A sponsorship by the Romanian tourism agency is always up for grabs. We can always wait for that. I can
Oscar,
bring up a picture of the castle.
There's a comment on Twitch. Yeah, do bring. There's a comment on Twitch saying Oscar's saying, "Why does anyone go to Romania? Romanian propaganda." Well, we have a lot of history, nevertheless. But this wasn't mainly about Romania. We're trying to discuss the misconception of Dracula being a vampire.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, if you're gonna go to Transylvania, you're gonna see it for yourself. Obviously, with the castle as well as many other historical buildings which have been turned by travel agencies into more of a based on Bram Stoker's
I'll bring a picture of the
story
castle up right now.
or other legends that have been created by the Western world. They are being used as marketing points.
You can see that this is one of the angles of the castle, although Vlad did end up living here at some point during his life. Most of his life wasn't spent in Transylvania. It was mostly spent in Wallachia, specifically in the capital of Wallachia at the time, Târgoviște, which he used as a base of operations. But obviously this has been turned into what people see as like his home. And it's filled with tourists during most summers usually, but throughout the year you can see a few people going around.
Well, also, why don't you say, keep on going on it, so that a lot of things that you are going to see if you're going to go to visit is just marketing, and supporting the legends and the story because people buy it.
See
At
also.
the end of the day, people do buy it.
I think that's where our stream probably ends as well. I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to talk about. We've probably dispelled a lot of the myths around Vlad. We've talked about his past.
I hope that from the story that I said that about his reign and how he went to war with the Ottoman Empire gives a better perspective. That he didn't, like Calin said, he didn't live in the castle or in Transylvania for a long time, because most of his years as the ruler of Wallachia he actually spent in Wallachia and in Târgoviște. So he didn't really have much to do with Transylvania, first of all, which shows once again that the castle and him isn't really a good association. And just like you saw in the picture, I do hope it's not very spiky, just like in the cartoons or movies or whatever you see. It's not that I don't know, scary or whatever you want to call it. We have some more comments on Facebook. Is the castle a museum now, or is it kept as it is? It's a museum as well as parts of it. So it's a museum. You can visit it. A part of it's a hotel, and part of it can be actually hired as a ballroom for weddings and stuff. I know they do that. But yeah, you can go and visit it from inside out.
Most of us, or at least in my generation, because Andrei's a bit older than me, actually go on school trips at some point during our primary school. Like during our primary school time, the school usually takes us to historical sites, and this castle. The name of it is Banat Castle, if I remember right, is one of the locations that you are brought to, and obviously it's they really sensationalize as a kid. It's almost like they do in the book, because obviously
the
all of us
imagination just goes wild.
Yeah, all of us are children at the time, and they go around. The tour guide's like, oh yeah, this is where Vlad. I don't know.
I remember as a child I was afraid of it, for seeing all the cartoons and everything. And when I ended up there, I do remember, but it's a vague memory, that there was like this sort of man dressed as Vlad, but more of a vampire rather than Vlad the Impaler himself. Do you show a picture of Vlad? Because we didn't show a picture of Vlad. I think he does look menacing. He does look like someone you don't want to mess with.
There we are. Every time I go to get a picture, the stream does lag a little bit.
Like I said, guys, do give us some time. We're still trying to figure out all the software, all the bells and whistles. But we will get there. We'll try next time to get the Facebook comments on the chat box on the stream. Hopefully that will work. We're having some issues right now.
I've just brought up a picture of him. Oscar was saying before that my mustache looks kind of like his, but I don't really see the similarities, to be honest. He's got a more glorious mustache. But yeah, he's obviously quite a popular figure in Romania.
Go on, finish.
I was gonna say this painting is, it wasn't made in that period. It's something way after. The only actual pictures that we have of him from that period are sketches, and they look nowhere near as detailed as the picture we just shown.
Would it be too bad to actually so impale people? Will we get banned for that? That's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, no, then
so
anything to do with blood is bannable.
If you want to see his gruesome ways of taking care of people, do go and Google it up yourself. You will find, just write the enemies impaled by Vlad or something like that. It should definitely come up. We will probably get in trouble.
Yeah,
if we
definitely would.
If you guys have any more questions,
please
do say them now. If not, I think that's about it for today. But we will wait a few more minutes to see if there are any other questions coming up.
You check on Facebook. I've got everything else.
Sonic Control. So another comment from Avinash. You're doing great here presenting the history of yesterday. Thank you very much. Like I said, if you want to find out more information, always check our publication. We have a lot of articles. Has anyone written about
Vlad? No.
I don't think so.
That's probably going to be one of us in the future.
I think I might have a year ago. I need to check. Wait, I'll check right now.
Silent Controllers just said that YouTube stream is slower than Twitch. Yeah, we've been having problems with our broadcasting software. They really don't like our YouTube channel for some reason. There is never like a stable connection between our streaming software and the YouTube platform. So we're very sorry for you using YouTube to watch us.
So I'm just gonna pause you there right for a minute. So one of our writers, Peter Preska, has written about him. So I will, for whoever's interested, I will post it after this, the podcast ends, a friendly link to the article on Facebook if anyone's interested to see some more information or some actual pictures, the ones I was talking about with impaled people, because there's some gruesome pictures on there as well. I think at least some paintings, representations.
Sonic Controller said, can you talk about the Rhodes resistance against the Ottoman Empire next time? We can have a look as part. We were thinking of doing alternate history next week as a general stream topic, so we could have a look at how the Rhodes resistance impacted the Ottoman Empire, as well as the Romanian resistance against it and the Moldavian resistance, of course. But if you guys have any ideas on different alternate history topics we could look at, so let's say, what if World War I never happened, or if Archduke Franz Ferdinand wasn't assassinated, or if Hitler didn't rise to power, something along those lines, make sure to email us or post on Facebook, and we will make sure to discuss it.
We will definitely share. Like I said, I'm going to share the link to the article after the podcast has ended. I think there's a few more comments from Silent Control on Twitch.
That's it. I just went through them. I said that we were gonna look at
focusing on something else. My bad.
Yeah. I think that might be it.
Yeah. So if there's not any more questions, thank you for tuning in. And the next stream was probably going to be on Wednesday, I think.
Most probably, yeah.
But just like we done with today's stream, we're gonna post on all social medias when the next stream's gonna be a day in advance. So you will have time to make free time for our podcast.
Yeah. With that said, I'm gonna play the outro and hope everyone will stay safe, and we'll see you this Wednesday. See you,
Have a
everyone.
lovely evening.